When I grow up, I will be rich. Stories and Tales with and about money for children by Cristian Boloban and Eusebiu Borcaș. Regaining wealth in the blessed kingdom of Transylvania. Once upon a time, in an old but not forgotten era, there was a wealthy kingdom created by God. The blessed realm was called Transylvania. The Transylvania kingdom was thriving, and its mountains were full of gold. The local people lived their lives removing the precious metal from deep inside the mountains. The kingdom was very rich due to the large quantity of gold that could be found in the mountains. Also, the villagers became rich with the help of the gold, which wasn't bad at all. There is nothing wrong with being rich. The only problem was that as they found more and more gold, they became reckless. They sold the gold to their neighbors for a very low price. The money they gained was spent rapidly and was used to buy transitory and unimportant objects. The more they earned, the more they spent, partied, and ate. In other words, they wasted their money as soon as they had earned it or as soon as they had won it, without considering the future. Until one day, the gold in the mountains was finished. All of it. There was nothing left. The people were immediately impoverished. They didn't have anything left to eat or wear. They ended up wearing rags. Diseases started to spread. They had no money for medicine. It was a real disaster. The kingdom of Transylvania was led by a very wise king named Mugur at that time. King Mugur was very wealthy because when the times were good and you could find gold lying about in the street, he had a habit of putting it aside and gathering white gold for a rainy day. However, the advice he gave to the people hadn't reached them. The king advised his subjects to wisely manage their wealth in order to use it with caution, attention, and consideration. Of course, the people didn't take his advice and wasted their fortune on useless things, up to the point where there was nothing left. King Mugur was sad to see how reckless the people were. As he was kind-hearted, he started to share the money he had collected over the years with the people, as he cared for them. But they kept coming to him, and a large crowd gathered in front of the castle gates. They started begging more and more, until one day Mugur said, "Stop! This cannot go on." Begging was not a solution, and he had to find one, an intelligent solution for the problem the kingdom was facing. Therefore, one night, he called his only son, Alexander, and entrusted him with a crucial mission. The whole fate of his beloved kingdom rested on this mission. Alexander the prince had inherited his father's wisdom. Furthermore, he grew up learning how to save money in the good times when the kingdom was prosperous, in case of harder times when gold was nowhere to be found. He learned the art of negotiation and also understood the importance of sharing what he had with the less fortunate. King Mugur wanted to make sure his son, Alexander, would become a wise leader. Therefore, King Mugur sent his son overseas to the land of money to explore it and to learn as much as possible about it. He advised him to stay there for at least 3 years. The king relied on his son. King Mugur was hoping that Alexander would learn the methods needed to rule over the kingdom of money, to be able to manage the money, and then share it with the people in Transylvania, and with their children. He hoped that the wisdom and science of money could bring back the opulence they had lost due to ignorance, pride, and lack of proper management. Prince Alexander started his journey with a bag of coins, which he spent wisely and carefully, only buying items he really needed and had a use for. He was satisfied with the simple life. During his trips, he learned valuable lessons that served him and the people back in the village. He learned how to cultivate, hunt, take care of animals, weave, use steel, calculate, fish in the rivers, and other crafts as well. When the time to go back arrived, the prince returned right away. He was just about to get home when he saw an old lady not far from the carriage, close to an inn at a crossroad. She sat down and was very weak. He could barely look at her. She was dressed poorly in rags. "Have mercy on an old lady. Give me a coin and God will bless you," she said. People were passing and pretending not to see her. She was completely ignored. From his journey across the globe to the land of money, he'd returned bearing wisdom, but he only had 3 coins left. Seeing the misfortune of the old lady, Alexander gave her his last 3 coins. As soon as the coins touched the bottom of the chalice the old lady held in her hands, she turned into a beautiful princess named Generosity. The princess had been cursed when she was young by an old witch and trapped in an old beggar's body. She could never escape the curse until the moment someone placed his entire fortune in the chalice. All this happened because the princess refused to marry the son of the witch. He was a mean and greedy man like no other. All the belongings of the prince at that moment were the 3 coins he still had from the long and tiring journey. Having blessed the prince for his good deeds, the princess offered to join him on the path of life, and he immediately asked her to become his wife. Both the prince and princess had fallen deeply in love. After he calmed down, he took her hand and they headed towards the palace. As soon as they got there, a wonderful wedding took place. But what about the problems in Transylvania? Prince Alexander hadn't forgotten the problems or his people, and as soon as he inherited the kingdom from his father Mugur, who wanted to enjoy his retirement and wait for his grandchildren to be born, he started to teach what he had seen and learned in the remote land of money. Some of the villagers learned how to cultivate, others how to take care of animals or use steel, and so on. But all of them learned how to manage their earnings, and they all saved at least 1/10 of their money when times were good, so they could use it in the event of bad times. He taught each one of them to pass on the science of making and managing money to their children and grandchildren. Passing this knowledge from generation to generation meant that the people of Transylvania would never go back to the pit of poverty due to their ignorance and lack of management skills. Above all, he taught the people to be generous. He told them that they would be blessed by God only if they helped the less fortunate. The villagers were happy to learn the teachings of King Alexander, and Transylvania became a prosperous kingdom filled with wealth and opulence. King Alexander and his wife, the beautiful Queen Generosity, were able to see their dreams come true. They saw how the kingdom of Transylvania regained its wealth, and with the help of God, they were able to guide their people for years to come.